Hi, everybody. Welcome to our third episode in the Impact Career Series from the Marshall Institute here at the London School of Economics. This is our last episode before we take a longer break for the summer. Don't worry, we will be back in September with another series of inspiring guests who will share their experiences of embedding social impact across a wide array of roles and different sectors. As you all know, I'm your host. My name is Carlos Miranda. I'm a social entrepreneur, and I'm very lucky to be a practitioner in residence here at the Marshall Institute. And throughout my work, I've advised a range of philanthropic organizations, social ventures, nonprofits, and I've seen really like firsthand, right, how careers evolve to align with purpose. This can be a complex and surprising path, yet it's always, tends to be a very rewarding one. Now, if you've missed any of our previous episodes, make sure you can catch up. Make sure that you do. It's always available on the Marshall Institute's LinkedIn, but we're also available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Now, today we have a very fun and unique episode. I'll be delighted in a second to welcome our friend Ian Chen, who's actually an alumnus of the LSE Marshall Institute's Executive MSc in Social Business and Entrepreneurship. So we're looking forward to hearing more about his experience in the program and really how it's helped to shape his career. Currently, Ian, and I'm very excited by this, is the social responsibility lead for APAC for a little company called Lego. It's rare that we have somebody on the show that works for for a company that we've all like interfaced with or have such happy memories with. So this is a really fun episode for us. Ian develops strategic, data-driven social impact plans for countries like Indonesia, India, and Vietnam. And before joining Lego, he has spent over 8 years in the nonprofit and international development sector, focusing on healthcare, early childhood education, and clean water access. His work in country planning, program management, and partnership development has kind of enabled him to deliver meaningful impact in diverse and often very challenging environments. So without further ado, let's welcome Ian.
Thanks,
Hey,
Carlos.
Ian.
Wow. Thanks for the introduction.
I know I'm always a little bit worried when I say like, and now let's welcome, that they're not going to appear, and I'm just going to stand there like. So I always get a little excited when it works perfectly. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. This is not scripted, and this is the question that I really want to know about. Forget about your career. What is, however you define favorite, but what's your favorite Lego set that you've built in the last couple of years?
Ooh. Well, that's a tough one. You need to give me time. I
This
would
podcast is
say
only 20 minutes, so let's go.
maybe the Land Rover. The Land Rover set
Oof.
that was
The big one?
that was nice. Yeah, the big one.
Wow.
I was just so impressed with the intricacies of the build, like the steering wheels connected
Yeah.
to the gear train to the wheels.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If you have not built that, Carlos, I think you should definitely
I
consider.
mean, maybe, normally as like viewers of our program or listeners of our program have seen, like I'm usually standing in front of a huge Star Wars poster that's in my office, right? But my favorite Lego set actually is not a Star Wars one. The best Lego set that I've ever built, the one that I have geeked out about most, was the 1989 Batmobile, which was
Ooh,
it was the most beautiful, and it was massive. It was like a meter long. It took me about 2 weeks to build. And it's still like, it just sits there, but it's it's one of the coolest things. All right, listen,
it's
I know we can talk about Lego.
yeah,
This is really
it'll
all I
be
want to
20
do, but
minutes.
this is not why they pay us the big bucks. So walk us through your journey, man. What, kind of from working in international development to your
Mm,
current role leading social responsibility at Lego. Talk to us through it. Like, what's motivated your transitions? Tell us about your role.
mm. Sure, happy to. So as you were sharing earlier in the introduction, so I very much started my career in international development, and that has
Mhm.
allowed me to really experience many different facets of the work
Mhm.
across different focus areas, healthcare, clean water access, and primarily in Southeast Asia and also in India. And I think that very much, I think, cemented the fact that I think in order to deliver meaningful impact or sustain impact, and very much with the intent to strengthen local systems, you really need and you rely on multi-sectoral sort of partnerships and collaborations. Um, And I think given the context I was in, I spent a lot of my time in Myanmar, and that was before the coup. Um, it was very close partnership between the NGO sector and the government. And I think that then sort of sparked the interest on where is that corporate side,
Mm,
what corporates do, and what really is the role that they could potentially play. Um, so I think that was sort of maybe started to accumulate over the years in
mm,
terms of what
mm,
would it take to really harness that collaboration in a bigger
mm,
way. And again, the roles that each of the different sector players would, how they contribute and how we align efforts. So that eventually culminated in, of course, motivated me to look at opportunities to deepen my understanding and appreciation, which led me to LSE, where the executive masters in social business
mm,
and entrepreneurship. And I think that really, I guess, again, cemented this sort of interest in how could I take this further? How do I be part of that journey to
mm,
continue to understand and learn what could corporate action be in terms
mm,
of deliver and enable greater social impact? What is
mm,
that opportunity there? Um, and I was also, of course, really, really lucky to be privy to an opportunity with the Lego Group, given the organization that it is,
mm,
to wanting to deliver social responsibility or social impact in a very intentional way. So maybe to talk a little bit more about the role that I play. So as part of the social responsibility team within the Lego Group, it's as what you shared earlier, it's how do I leverage essentially the resource mix of the Lego Group to meaningfully benefit children. Um, and it's very much the red thread across all our initiatives is how do we unleash the power of play? How do we enable greater learning through play? And I think, as we all know, play is essential for children to build skills that will allow them to thrive in the future, and not just for children, for us as well.
mm. Yeah.
And when we play, we learn to solve problems creatively. We learn to reason systematically. We strengthen our confidence, our collaboration with others, and all that good stuff. Um, and as a Lego Group, as an organization, we firmly believe in children's right to play and learn. So a lot of my work is looking both internally and externally. How do I mobilize and really accelerate that effort? Um, so a lot of the work is what I just shared. Looking with working with like-minded organizations externally to look for these meaningful opportunities that the Lake Group is well positioned to make a meaningful contribution, and this is
Mm,
very much founded on national policies, local research that we do, and of course in consultation with various stakeholders. But also there's that internal component as well, where there's that rallying, that mobilizing. Of internal resources and looking at opportunities where we get to dovetail our efforts in a meaningful
mm.
way, again, to deliver shared value. So I can go on and on about this, and I think 20 minutes may
Nah.
not. But yeah, maybe
Yeah.
a quick snapshot.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. Like I'd love to hear a little bit more about like you've given us a really nice overview, but like what does like a typical day for you look like, right? Like in my head, you're like, like doing partnership development with like a six
Mm,
foot Lego Darth Vader behind you, but like maybe that's not what you do all day. But like tell us a little bit more
not
about
too
like
far.
what is oh, that's awesome. That's great. I expect pictures, but tell us more like what does a typical day for you look like?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the sort of the convenient answer is that no 2 days are the same.
Right.
But I think typically it would entail, of course, conversations with, as I said,
Hmm.
external partners.
Hmm.
So for the APAC region, we currently have activities across 8 different countries. So
Hmm.
understanding the needs on the ground, the context in consultation with our partners, really
Hmm.
trying to again identify meaningful opportunities where we are well positioned to make to contribute. And when we think about our resource mix, it could be funding, it could be our skilled
Hmm.
volunteers, it could be our products,
Hmm.
it could be our brand. So looking at all this array of resources and where can we support to enable and support some of the good work that's already being done. Then the other facet is the internal. So understanding from the local businesses across the respective geographies, um, what is the sort of intent or what are some of the priorities, what are some of
Hmm.
the plans, um, and how do we potentially optimize that with a lens of social impact. So
Hmm.
almost as I said, shared value, might there be opportunities to think creatively of
Hmm.
doing good and do well at the same
Yeah.
time for the
Yeah.
organization? So I mean, it's still fairly conceptual, but I think
Yeah.
it's a lot of it is discussions, learning, understanding,
Hmm.
taking various viewpoints, because again, the APAC region is so diverse, contexts are
Yeah.
so varied. Um, so there is a lot of nuance related to it as well.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, you've talked a lot about, you've mentioned now several times kind of the region and how many countries you work in. So if you're working across regions like India, Indonesia, Vietnam, what are some of the most like meaningful challenges or unexpected kind of lessons you've encountered working across so many different kinds of places? Because
Mm.
those are not the same places.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think anybody who has worked in APAC will agree that I think it's really a collection of very diverse countries,
Hmm.
and context is key. So
Hmm.
a lot of my attention is also focused on understanding, unpacking the context of that
Hmm.
particular locality and that geography. So I think one of the interesting learnings and challenges that I've encountered, which I think I'm continuing to grow and develop, it's
Hmm.
really understanding how do I perceive or how do I see things from different perspectives and different
Hmm.
lens, and also at different levels. Um, the organizations that I speak with, which are large in scale, speaking to leaders, which are very, very senior. So the level of sort of engagement is different
Right.
versus when I'm more at the grassroots, at a community level, again, the sort of conversations are different. So I think it's being able to operate at um, to be able to operate where I have to moderate myself across
Yeah.
different levels and across different sort of perspectives and lens. I think that's definitely something that I have had to really exercise that muscle and then develop for
Hmm.
myself professionally.
Yeah. No, that's fabulous. And obviously kind of in terms of your learning journey to kind of do
Mm,
that. I love the fact, obviously, that you're like me, you're an LSE alum, and it is this podcast isn't just about speaking with LSE alum,
mhm,
but it's always really nice when we get to do that. Tell us a little bit about kind of your experience at
mm.
LSE and how how it's contributed to your role now and how you approach things. I'd love to hear like unpack that a little bit.
No, and right on point as well. I think reflecting on my experience with LSE through the Executive Masters Program, I think of course the frameworks and the sort of the theoretical sort of um, designs and all the discussions were definitely insightful and thought provoking and definitely very enlightening from somebody
Mm.
whose primary experience was in the nonprofit sector to really challenge my ways of
Yeah.
thinking. But I guess a few years since the graduation of the program, I think what I really take away is the network from my cohort.
Yeah.
And as I was sharing with you, in terms of exercising that muscle to be able to have conversations at different levels and with different perspectives, I think that was something that I definitely feel I honed in the duration of the program. The diversity of the cohort speaks for itself. I had colleagues from all over the world, or
Yeah.
classmates all over the world. I had colleagues, classmates who are from different types of organizations operating at different levels, at different various seniorities in tenures of their career. So every sort of group discussion or class participation session was, I did catch myself thinking, okay, I want to make this point. How should I pitch it? At what
Yeah.
level, with the what sort of nuance. Um, so I would say that was definitely something that I've taken away. And I think it's also given myself sort of exposure and perspective that
Mm.
there are many ways to consider, and depending on the sort of resolution you want to take, there will
Mm.
be different sort of learnings and insights to be derived as well.
Yeah. No, I think that that's one of the things, every single time I'm sitting in one of the LSE kind of, Marshall Institute classrooms, to your point, that the network and the breadth of people from like in every single kind of class that I've engaged with or interacted with is always it's always amazing and it's always inspiring. And I think that like, you know, you talked about theory, you can learn the theory and it can resonate with you and you can debate it and you can, but in 5, 10 years time, you may not necessarily, I mean, everybody's different, but you may not necessarily remember it. But what you do remember are the connections, that the way you felt in
Mm.
that classroom, the way you felt. And I think the network and the ability to kind of to build your network, but then also have that network be there for you as you move on and you progress in your career is very important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Couldn't
And
agree more.
no. And I think that like it's always nice to hear when we have returning alumni talk about that, because I think it's I think it's wonderful. So in terms of, I have a few more questions for you before you go.
Sure.
One is, part of this as well is speaking about the network and speaking of alumni. Part of this is about advice, right? Like you work at a you work at Lego, which must be, I get, like, I people must freak out or like get really cool, like people must be one of those jobs that when you're in a dinner party and people say, "Oh, where do you work?" "I work at Lego." Immediately, someone has like a positive reaction to it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so, like, does that happen all the time? Whenever you say it, people are like, "Oh, I'll tell you about this Lego set, whether you want to or not."
No, I definitely get that. It's as you pointed out right at the start. It's very I'm very lucky to be part of an organization which elicits such
Mhm,
positive sort of sentiments from people. Um, I am also very fortunate to be in a country and to be part of a community that grew up with Lego as
mhm,
well. So that
mhm,
definitely resonates very very deeply. I have a young boy, and I think he is super pampered to be showered with a lot of Lego sets.
yeah,
And something that I need to sort of curb so that he doesn't
yeah,
think that this is the norm, that everybody
yeah,
gets Lego sets so readily and so easily. So, but yeah, for sure, I think that's
yeah,
definitely something that comes with it, and the legacy of the company for the
yeah.
duration it has been around, I think it speaks for itself.
I mean, that's great. And so, what advice would you give to somebody watching this or listening to this in their car on their way to work, in terms of, if someone is considering a move into kind of more of a mission-driven organization or a mission-driven role? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. But I guess upon reflection again, I think one response I've given to folks who have reached out, I think in terms of making that transition into more of a corporate environment,
Hmm.
of course, it's in choosing the organization that you choose to join. Um, and I think there's something to be said about looking at how it's sort of set up, social
Hmm.
responsibility or CSR, or whichever the organization would choose to label it as. How does it fit within the organizational setup of the company?
Hmm.
I think that says a lot about how they measure success, how they
Yep.
evaluate the sort of intentionality or the sort of outcomes of their work. So I would throw in that maybe practical sort of nugget to consider when you
Hmm.
are thinking about moving from a mission-driven organization to a more corporate setup, the type of organization you want to join. So that would be one advice. I think the second, maybe the second and third, I'll combine the two.
Yeah.
I think one is you you definitely need to be you need to be very very curious
Mm-hmm.
about the work. Um, you are moving into an environment which is entirely different, um, where it's very, I guess it's a business, so sort of the motivations, the incentives, the sort of decision making processes are very different. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important to be curious, to take every day as a school day, and to learn as much as you can and to absorb. And I think what would come out of it naturally is that you start to observe yourself speaking the same language as your colleagues. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you come in from myself as the NGO sector, I use the buzzwords, output, outcome, impact,
Yeah.
sustainability, and all that, right? Which is foreign language to my business colleagues. Um, but I guess when you remain curious and you understand where they're coming
Mm-hmm.
from, the day to day, what are they familiar with, I think establishing that common vocabulary is so important in order to look at, can we potentially achieve together. I think the second part is also be prepared to inspire, because again, often in such roles, um, we have the task to be creative, to
Mm-hmm.
look for opportunities for us to, you know, do good and do well,
Mm-hmm.
deliver on business priorities, but also, you know, achieve meaningful social impact. And often it's not maybe conceived or thought of in such a manner. So you do need to be prepared to inspire and share and to mobilize and rally in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there is that sort of that facet of the role as well,
Yeah.
coming into this.
Just to build on that really quickly
Mm,
as one more kind of question, in terms of like you talked about kind of learning to speak the language of kind of your colleagues internally, right? How does that translate among your colleagues across other regions as well? Because obviously you're
mm,
the lead in APAC. Like how do you coordinate? And I don't mean to take us back, but you said something I'm just kind of more curious.
mm,
Obviously, Lego is very international. You really do work all over the
mm.
world. How does your work interface across other regions?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I guess the sort of the maturity in terms of,
Mm.
you know, we can talk about shared value or talk about
Yeah, yeah.
social impact, talk about
Mm.
delivering on, you know, some of the contributions on the ground to the local communities. The sort of the base level of understanding varies depending on the region to region and where you're looking at.
Yeah.
Um, so I think again going back to understanding the context is so important.
Hmm.
In certain locations, delivering on your social ambitions, on delivering social impact might be a
Hmm.
prerequisite.
Yeah.
In another location, it's good to have, right? So
Yeah.
I think having that base understanding, I think is so fundamental in order to be able to articulate and then to 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 be able to then sort of encourage and motivate um, the respective teams. So I think that is part of the vocabulary bit, but also I think
Mm.
being very cognizant of what are the realities on the ground,
Yeah.
both in terms of the contextual challenges, the business challenges, just the country internal country challenges as well. I think it's
Yeah.
so vital to be able to come across as convincing, but also somebody who is who knows their stuff in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, that's fantastic. And I just want to. I know it's late where you are. We're, a little bit earlier in the day than yours. But I just wanted to say thank you, buddy. Like this has been fabulous. It's rare that we get to talk. Like I said earlier in the intro, that we get to talk to somebody whose company has, as you said, such happy memories for almost all of us now. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there are very few people that would listen to this podcast that don't have some kind of emotional connection to you and to Lego and the company. And it's always wonderful to kind of be able to hear from somebody like you in terms of like what it is that you do and your career and for your advice. So I just want to, on behalf of the entire kind of all of our listeners on the LSA team, I just want to say thank you for staying up late for us. You look very sharp for a post dinner show, and so thank you very much, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carlos. Thanks for having me.
Take care. All right. So, well, that was Ian. That was fabulous. A huge thanks to him for such an engaging and obviously insightful conversation. And a thank you, all of you, for joining us live. If this conversation has sparked something in you, a desire to transition to maybe a more purpose led work or to deepen your impact where you are, we're already where you are, our executive MSc Social Business and Entrepreneurship might just kind of be for you guys. Our course covers, obviously, as we've always said, business principles within wider social, political, and economic contexts. The program is designed for full-time working professionals, so you don't need to kind of take a break from your career to join us. We're still accepting applications for this upcoming kind of 2025, 2026 cohort. So if you want to find out more, go to our course page and register your interest. You can also find out about our programs, including our social entrepreneurship online certificate. Our next start date, in case you're interested, is the 17th of September, and the deadline for applications is the 9th of September. So you still have a little bit of time if you're interested. If you want to keep up to date on events, research, and thought leadership, you can also subscribe to our newsletter, as you can kind of see here, which, by the way, the newsletter is taking a break for the summer, but we'll be back up monthly from September. Once more, you can catch up with this series anytime on the Marshall Institute LinkedIn page, but also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And again, thank you so much for joining us on the series so far. We will be picking up again come September with an entire kind of series of other fabulous interviews. I saw the list the other day, and I'm really excited. So see you guys in September. And in the meantime, have an amazing summer and try to stay cool. Take care. Bye, guys.